Now, narratives obviously get retold by people who themselves are remembering what happened without maybe refreshing themselves. But then the nature of Reddit, and especially Twitter and generally social media in the modern day, is these things tend to just echo and repeat and repeat and repeat. And suddenly you're getting a story retold by someone who wasn't there themselves, and then they're repeating the hearsay, or rather the repeated version of another retelling of the story by someone who themselves wasn't there, who might be telling a retell. You can see the problem. It's like Matryoshka, it's their Russian dolls within each other, isn't it? So in this scenario, it becomes a mad game of telephone, and sometimes the actual narrative gets so skewed by the end, it's something ridiculous like, well, I guess if Scott only won one title, then he can't be the best. It's like, I can't handle them. So people will know, to me, accuracy of characterization of narratives is very important. It's basically my whole career. It's what I put my entire adult professional working life into. Hence why, even if I meme on Bjergsen or TSM or Reginald, I never say that like season 6 World TSM was trash and had no right to get out the group and they were just garbage. No, actually that was a tragedy what happened with them at that tournament. It's incredible that they got that group draw, and quite frankly I thought they were going into one of the best teams. That's why I actually did an article about saying as much after the fact. Similarly, if people go on and on about that old one that I fucking hate about Bengi's Niddly at season 6 Worlds, like, oh my god, and that proves that he's the GOAT, like one fucking game that they always get the characterization wrong for, and they always don't bother mentioning key context about the rest of the tournament, and whether he was a starter, whether he wasn't, how he was used, why he was playing, why he wasn't being used in that particular game, what the opponent was doing, how did the opponent play in that game. No, it's just presented as simple as like, Niddly was the pick for Bengi, he carried the game, and therefore he's the greatest. So generally, I hate narratives that get set in stone as bullshit, and then they just repeat and refine into the worst polished dog shit of all time. So one of those is about EDG playing against SKT, winning the first big international tournament for the LPL in terms of like international play and big lands. And more importantly, wasn't just EDG winning, it's that Faker lost, SKT lost, and the nature of the draft and the champion that Faker played makes people say Faker lost, Faker was countered, Pawn was better than Faker, EDG was better than Faker, EDG was better than SKT, EDG outgamed SKT, all this jazz. So the narrative goes like this essentially. EDG baited Faker into picking LeBlanc, and then Pawn, the opposing mid laner, countered him, and or the team countered and shut down Faker and thus won MSI. Now this obviously ties into another narrative that got out of control, which was when Pawn in the WCG qualifier in 2013 was on Samsung Blue and they beat SKT in shocking fashion, it began this whole storyline of Pawn is the kryptonite to Faker. And then what happened? Pawn went over to Samsung White, one of the best teams in the world. They won Worlds next year and they beat SKT a bunch of times. So the story became, it's just Pawn's better than Faker, he just counters him, doesn't he, in lane, just a better mid. Even though, by the way, two of those teams I was talking about, Samsung White was a better team than SKT, so that one didn't even make sense anyway. So this plays into that because Pawn was the other guy. This was the other mid laner. Now that was obviously always overblown eye test wise anyway. Like it was basically, wasn't just like, yeah, he did a great job in his first outing. The other times when he was on White, it wasn't that big a deal. Then this obviously ties into the notion that like Faker couldn't play the game because of the draft, or you know what, he underperformed on this particular champion, or he was outgamed by the veto, man. It's always implied from the veto like this was just like Faker's ego, like he just picked it because he thought he couldn't be beaten, or his hubris of like, I can pick whatever I want, even if suspiciously they're leaving it open. Like this is the notion. Like in reality, if you go watch the fucking mic test video, Koma basically tells him, pick it if you feel confident in it, pick whatever you feel confident in. And by the way, if you notice how this particular narrative never seems to go and be a black mark on Koma's record, the fucking coach who does the draft, by the way, and then the notion that he's the GOAT coach. I love that guy didn't win fucking MSI or Worlds this year, because I know you guys would have taken that narrative and taken it completely too far. You would have basically done that stupid thing people do with like the Brady Belichick there. It was all Brady who did it all. Like that's you guys. You don't even care about context. You just want a sexier storyline. So let's get into this topic, right? Faker's LeBlanc was unbeaten in pro play at the time. It was the champion he had helped to make his name on, as everyone famously forgets. Yes, in his first game, his first series, he played against CJ. It wasn't CJ at the time, was it? I think it was still CJ. Yeah, CJ Entus Blaze, and obviously he played against Ambition, and he played Niddly, didn't he? He killed him when he was involved. We all know that jazz, right? But what everyone forgets is in the second series, I think it was, that he played against MVP Blue, which had Easy, who was the mid laner, by the way, and he fucking ruffle stomped them with Deathfire Grasp. LeBlanc, it's like one of the most crazy games you'll ever see, ever. It's unbelievable. I mean, they basically nerfed the fuck out of everything not that long after this, because understandably, right? They won't ever let anyone do that again. At the time, Faker had won all 12 pro play games he'd played on LeBlanc, and not that long before MSI, he'd just destroyed CJ Entus. Are you ready? This is the key context. In the game 5 of the OGN Spring semi-final, where he went 15-1-10 on LeBlanc and fucking murked CJ. And that was another series where SKT, from memory, was fucking around with whether or not Easy Hoon plays, and then they bring Faker in and Faker has to save the day. So Faker was just trying to do it again. And by the way, SKT had a little bit of fragility this year. They had back times. It wasn't the summer when they became super dominant. This was when they could be beaten and they could lose sometimes. And actually, even though Faker himself was off the bench for Easy Hoon, he was still an important player in that team, as some of the other players weren't necessarily always as great, particularly the bot lane for my money. Now, Faker picks LeBlanc in this draft, blue side, second rotation. It had been banned in all 4 of the games of the final beforehand. Are you ready? By SKT, including game 4, which is the only game they'd brought Faker in for. They let Easyhoon play the first 3 games and go down 1-2. They brought in Faker. They still banned LeBlanc themselves. And then basically they win the game and they go to game 5. So in this scenario, the logic goes that EDG is leaving the pick open to bait Faker, but then because Easyhoon's not going to play it anyway, like maybe SKT's not going to let Pawn get it, but also he's going to try and make them trick them and make them not notice if he doesn't ban LeBlanc at the end. And maybe this is Coma's way of getting LeBlanc into the server. Again, we're all speculating on these angles, so you can come up with whatever angle you want on that one. So basically, Faker, in terms of the mid lane champion, blind picks LeBlanc and just assumes I will be able to do something on it. At the time, all he could see, which was the first rotation for red side, was they'd picked Maokai and Alistair. Now, at this point in time, you know Maokai's going top. That was the meta back then. And you assume Alistair is something like support, probably, right? That would be where you would assume he would go at this point in time. EDG replies with Morgana after Faker picks LeBlanc. Pawn is obviously the mid laner of EDG. And then Ezreal for Deft, rather. And by the way, Ezreal was one of Deft's best champions ever. Now, Jat and Deficio talked even in this particular draft phase about how Morgana can be a lane counter to LeBlanc, and it mean like Faker has to play in a certain way and put pressure on early. Then the last pick ends up being Clearlove picking Eve, which, by the way, he'd used in amazing fashion, if you remember, the previous year at Worlds against RNG, or Starhorn Royal Club, rather, technically was the name of the team back then. And this was the first pick, though, for Clearlove, and anyone, of Eve at this tournament. And the logic was, this in itself means if the lanes have to play pushed up for SKT, maybe you can get the ganks off, etc. Now, if you go listen to this draft here, and you go read all the pre-game stuff people had, you're not hearing about how this is genius, the picks, or wow, they've trapped Faker, he can't play the game, or LeBlanc can't do anything against this comp, this is just impossible. These were the best experts in the world. They weren't saying that. That's because this is a story that's been applied later, and the implication that it's Faker who couldn't play definitely has. So as I said, there's comms of this game, including for EDG, by the way. Why isn't there a crazy bit, which you'd definitely keep in the comms video if it was there, of them going like, yes, we trapped him, yes, we got him. Right, unleash the comp that we planned. Wow, this is going to be so great with the Eve against him. Wow, you know that our pick of like Morgana is going to do such a lot against him. Maokai and Alistair, it's just a great draft up. No, there's none of that. There's none of that. They just go, yes, pick Eve. That's about it. Now, the match itself, which I would recommend people go and watch. It's one of the most epic matches in history in terms of the significance. Not that great a game, unfortunately. I'll just say it right now. Faker's doing absolutely fine in lane. He's up in CS when it's the actual real laning phase. They even have to do like a 3-man gank on him in mid, and he still survives because he's the best LeBlanc player ever. Faker's generally just doing fine. The problem is EDG is killing his teammates over and over. And so while Faker's doing fine, in fact, he's even getting fed because his teammates are getting killed, and not just feeding the opponent, but feeding all the opposition. So everyone's getting kills. Like at 22 minutes in, Faker is 2-0-2, but Pawn is already 4-1-5, and every EDG player except Eve, the fucking jungler Clearlove, has kills. SKT's even getting some dragons. Like they're still in this game as long as Faker keeps just carrying the game. EDG has double the kills at some point around now. Then you skip forwards a few more minutes, right? At 26 minutes, remember that was only 22 minutes, it was 2-0-2 for Faker. At 26 minutes, about 4 minutes later, Faker's 3-0-2 and dies in arguably the only setting in which he died in a dodgy fashion, and it looked like he at all sort of fucked up. And basically, in that moment, I'll give the one angle I think Faker did fuck up on, which is Faker knew he had to just carry this game and be impossible as like a hard carry. So unfortunately, he did get a Medjai Soul Stealer, and he did, as a result of this death, just lose some stacks. Like, I don't know why he's doing that in such a walk-the-line draft, but okay, I get the logic, which is if I can just somehow play this game perfectly, this will make me as powerful as possible, as soon as possible, in a game where actually it's a little bit fucking suspect and no one else is going to carry this game, and I basically have to put it all on my back. Okay, that angle I could sort of get you with, but even then, you go look at the way the game's played. He's supposed to run the whole game. He has to go in sometimes. 3 minutes later, EDG takes Baron, has an 18-7 kill lead, is up 7k in gold with everyone fed. Now, Faker's fed, but Bang is 1-4-2 on Urgot. He's going to do a lot, isn't he? Marin, who you all think was the real carry of that team, is 2-4-3 on Gnar. And Faker's jungle, Bengi, is fucking Nunu. Now, what exactly is Faker supposed to do in this game to win the game, except not die that one time with a Soul Stealer? Deficio even says in the game that the only wave clear they even have on SKT is LeBlanc. So Faker has to keep going back and clearing minions. 34 minutes in. So remember, we're only going 12 minutes after I said he was 2-up, 0-2 up. Faker gets a kill and is 4-1-3. That's his score at the moment on LeBlanc. 2 minutes later, they catch Faker with a big kill when basically SKT is desperate and has to go and try and stop a Baron that's happening. The score was already 20-9 in kills for EDG. They had a gold lead of 10k and they get the Baron and then they kill Faker. Game ends 1 minute later. Now, if you think this was all about Faker fucking up or Faker not being able to do anything in the game or the entire draft of the other team so genius or pawn specific, it isn't. That just isn't what it is. Like, you have to go watch the game. This is a bonk fucking nonsense narrative retconned onto it. Now, yes, if you look at some of the champions they picked and the order they picked them in, it was very shrewd by Aaron from EDG. I have a lot of respect for him from his time in WE. I think certainly Pawn did pick the Morgana as a counter. It just didn't end up being that necessarily impactful as a raw counter. It was actually that Faker's team played like shit, including the other traditional carry roles. He played great, but even then he had to gamble on the Soul Steal and did that one mistake. And aside from that, he does a very good job in the game. Like, and remember, the only reason they lose this final is because this fucking guy, Koma, the coach, didn't let Faker play the first 3 games. The greatest player of all time. By the way, probably the League of Legends player of 2015. But that's the fucking scenario SKT was in at the time. So the actual hubris is Koma's, you idiots! Koma even tells him to pick LeBlanc. None of this makes sense how it's characterised. So here's the problem I have. Let's just look at the scoreboard for a second. This was the scoreboard at the end of the game. Like I said, just look at it. SKT's on the left. EDG's on the right. That was Faker, was it? That was Faker fucking that whole game up, was it? What, was he underfed? Or did he just build incorrectly? Die loads of times? Or just bait everyone? Or what did he do wrong? What did he do, boys? The problem I have with this whole scenario is, I think it also plays into, remember, this is like middle part of 2015. So this is when Faker is about 2.5 years into his career. Now, everyone already calls him the GOAT. Everyone already calls him the best we've ever seen. Oh, he's a Michael Jordan. Everyone's already given him all that time. So as a result, people want to see him fall. People want to believe he's just human, that he can lose. Oh, his LeBlanc is beatable, man. Nobody's LeBlanc is unbeatable. Oh, he isn't the best. I mean, this is coming off the back, remember, when they were benching him for Easy Hoon, and then he didn't play in the final of fucking OGN Spring versus G Tigers because they didn't need to and they won with Easy Hoon. So Koma was also helping make it look like, maybe he's far enough, maybe he's having trouble. Oh, yikes. Like, I hate the whole way this was retconned, boys. I tell you what, though, if you like Thorin's Thoughts, maybe you want to drink from a cup that says Thorin's Thoughts. Thorin, 10% off your order at gamersubs.gg.
Hey guys, Keijo here, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel. I may never have found my way to playoffs, but I'm pretty sure Thorin's never found the clit. So yeah, enjoy the video.
This video was kindly supported by Iskander, Lager15, Matt Pugnatio, Rajcula, Travis Goff, Zack Schmidt, Adam Ochs, Animosity, Butt Pounder 420, Chronic Alcoholism, Hades, Jdubs, Jensen Goh, Joseph Ginsburg, Kovacevicd, Tobias Bernasconi, Zoomba, Zyrathenia, and of course, a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion and DZL. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? You want to ask me a question? Maybe you want to know who the guests are for my upcoming content, or you'd like to take part in one of those long donated discussions. Well, put your money where your mouth is at the Patreon link in the description box below and join the Scrilluminati today.